Alright, so this video is going to go step by step over the process of summarizing. It'll take us through reading the article, annotating the article, coming up with an outline, and then actually writing the summary. What you can do if you want to follow along is you can actually print out the article, which is called Global English, and you can find this under the summary folder in Blackboard under Course Documents. What I've chosen to do is I've chosen a fairly simple article to do, and obviously you're going to be reading more difficult articles in this class and in your future classes over your college career, but I wanted to pick something that was fairly simple, because the steps that we use in this one are the same steps that you're going to use regardless of the difficulty of the article. Okay? Alright, so the thing that we want to do anytime that we read an article, or even when we are reading, the chapter of a book or something longer, is we want to look at the title, read the title, and then we look at the first sentences of each paragraph. And the reason we want to do this is that it will give us a framework within which we can understand what we're reading. I'm sure that all of you guys have had this situation where you have read a complete chapter and realize you didn't understand any of it, or read a complete article and you realize you didn't understand any of it. So the benefit of going through and looking just at the title and the first sentence of each one is that when we go through and read the whole article, we have some basis with which to understand it, even if we don't completely understand it from this activity. So the title of this article is Global English. Okay, and so we can guess that this is going to be about English and something about it being in the globe or all over the world. So our first sentence is, in the last century there have been many advances in communication technology. Now if we look here, we don't see anything that's the same as Global English. There's no mention of English, and now it's starting about technology, so maybe it's going to be talking about that. Then let's look at the next sentence. Although English is used around the world, it's not the most common native language spoken at home. So in this one, we do have the word English again, and it uses language, and we know English is a language, and it also mentions the world, which is related to global. In many countries, English is spoken as a second language. Okay, so here again, we see English again, we see language again, then many countries again. So it seems to be the focus is something about the world and using of English. English is the most common language on the internet, but this is changing. So again, here we have the English, and we have language again, and now we do have the internet, which is a new piece of information. So the thing that we want to do as we go through these, which is sort of what I was doing before, is we want to look for words that are repeated. So we saw English in several places. We see in this next sentence, we see English, we see most common native language, language repeated, English, language, English, most common language. Okay, and the couple of things that I've circled there, although and but, these are transitions of some, or not so much transitions, but these are signal words that once we see them, we should pay attention to them. In this case, these are contrast words, but they may be important in helping us understand, so it's a good idea to circle those. Okay? So once we've read each of the first sentences, then we can go through and we can read the entire article. Now, as we read the entire article, we want to continue to do the same thing as we've done before. We want to pay attention to words that are repeated, but the other thing that we need to start doing now is we need to start crossing some things out, things that we know we're not going to include in our summary. Among those things are names, numbers, dates, percentages, and any quotations that we see. We'll get rid of those. As I've mentioned in class, most of the time those things are not going to be necessary to include in our summary, so it'll help us to make sure that we're only including important information by crossing them out. So let's take a look at this paragraph. In the last century, there have been many advances in communication technology. Technology makes it possible to communicate with people all over the world. People around the world can receive news about other countries and learn about other cultures and people. Turn on the TV and watch the news. Local people are being interviewed in East Asia, in the Balkans, or in Africa, and they're telling us in English what is happening in their communities. English is becoming the language used to communicate around the world. Okay, so across that, Asia and the Balkans and Africa, these are all names of places, and I'm not going to include them there. Now, one of the things that I know about a lot of articles is that the main idea tends to be in the first paragraph. So I'm paying very careful attention to this paragraph, and I realize that what I think is the main idea is this last sentence. So I'm going to write there MI, meaning main idea, right there on the side. And it's just a way to clue into me so that when I come back to summarize or to make an outline, it helps me find things more quickly. So then here's the next paragraph. Although English is used around the world, it's not the most common native language spoken at home. There are about 372 million native English speakers in the world. About 5,700 million people speak a native language other than English. The native language spoken by the most people in the world is Chinese. After Chinese, Hindi and Urdu have the second most speakers, followed by English. Spanish and Arabic have almost as many native speakers as English. Even in the United States, Spanish and Chinese are native languages for many people. Okay? You'll notice that I crossed out a number of things here. So we have, as we had before, we have these names of languages rather than countries. I crossed those out. The numbers, I crossed those out. You'll notice I also crossed out language spoken at home. And the reason that I did that is because it was in parentheses. In general, things in parentheses mean that they're additional information. So I'm going to get rid of that to help me narrow down my focus. So now I'm going to be looking for supporting details. So the first support, I think, is that although English is used around the world, it's not the most common native language. Now, my feeling is that by itself that's not enough. I'm going to include some other information, and what I want to include here is that that English, that Chinese, Hindi, and Urdu are also all ahead of English. More people speak them. Now you'll notice that I crossed out Chinese, Hindu, and Urdu, and I'll show you how I deal with that, not using those ones. Okay, so this is what I take from this paragraph. So here's the next one. In many countries, English is spoken as a second language. It's used for business and in government. English is the official language of government in more than 75 countries. Even the European Central Bank has English as its official language. In India, English is very widely used. Indian English has many special words, though, and there are dictionaries of Indian English. Some countries have even developed a special kind of English that's hard for other speakers of English to understand. For example, there's Spanglish, English and Spanish, Singlish, Singaporean English, and Taglish, spoken in the Philippines. Okay? You notice I crossed out a lot of things here. I crossed out 75 as a number, European Central Bank, which is a name, the country of India, even the adjective Indian. I also crossed out that whole sentence that was started with "for example," because I don't want to include examples in my summary unless I have to, but generally I can get away with not including them. So again, here I'm looking for supporting details. So my major support, I think, here is that it's spoken as a second language. And I'm going to add to that it's used for business and government. Okay? And here's the last paragraph. English is the most common language used on the internet, but this is changing. Currently, 80% of what is on the internet is in English. In 1999, about 54% of internet users were native English speakers. However, non-native English speakers are the fastest growing group of new internet users. As the use of the internet grows around the world, other languages will be used more and more. But English will still be the language most often used to communicate between speakers of other languages, especially in business. Okay? So again, I'm crossing out numbers and I'm crossing out dates here. And I'm going to take this supporting detail, and I'm going to also take this major supporting detail to help explain my first one. Okay, so now I'm done with the article, and if I go back and look, I'll see the things that I have, the words that I've circled, and I'm also going to see the supporting details and the minor supporting details that I'm going to include. And what I'll do is I'll make an outline. Okay, I do encourage you when you're at home to make an outline, because it really should guide your writing. I know not everyone has to, but I do encourage it because I do think in general it helps you to do a better job. So anyway, in my outline, I'll start off with the main idea. And you see here that I'm just copying the words. I'm not bothering to paraphrase right now. And then here, I'm having my major support. Okay, and then I include my minor support. Again, more major support with the minor support, major support, and minor support. Now here I have my outline. Now the one thing that I know is that my summary is going to be the same as my outline. So I really want to try to just use my outline for writing my summary, because then I'll avoid including things that aren't important. So here's the summary that I came up with. So in the article Global English, the author states that English has become the language people use to communicate globally. Pardon me. First, the author notes that while English is used in many countries, it doesn't have the most native speakers. It's actually the fourth most common native language, tied with 2 other languages. Okay, so this is how I got away from using the names of the other languages, the Urdu and the Chinese. And I forget Arabic, and Spanish, I forget the other one. Second, English is used as a second language for government and business in many different countries. The author's final point is that English is the most widely used language on the internet. While noting this, the author also states that this is changing because people whose first language isn't English make up the fastest growing portion of new internet users. Now, one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind as you look at my summary here is that I use a lot of the words that the author has used. So the author used language, used people a lot, used communicate, native. A lot of these words I've used the exact same words that the author has used. The thing that I've done is I've changed the order of things. And I've used different structures, so I'm not copying exactly, even though I'm using many of the same words. One of the problems that you guys often run into is that you feel that you have to, in your paraphrasing, that you have to use a synonym for each one of these, and the result is that you end up picking words that just don't mean the same thing, and you end up changing the meaning. So don't be afraid about using, some of the same words. The other thing that I want to point out, most of you guys are doing a fine job of this, but one of the things you do want to include is you want to include transitions which highlight what the major supporting details are. So you'll notice that I used first and second and final and also, and this is just a way of tying all of these things together. Okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to stop by and chat with me, or talk to me after class. Take care. Bye.